So today I want to talk to you about one huge lesson that completely transformed my life forever. All right. Now, my hope is that by the end of this video, you've learned something that will also alter your outlook on life a little bit. All right. Now, the truth of the matter is this: all of us learn so many different lessons every single day, right? Now, I can't even go as far as to say there's no way we go throughout the day without identifying a few tweaks within our actions that if we decided to implement going forward will make our life so much better, right? One of those lessons is actually something I came across on YouTube this week. It was a conversation with Alex Hormozi on the School of Greatness podcast, which, by the way, if you're not subscribed to the School of Greatness podcast, I don't know why. If you care about personal evolution, personal growth, entrepreneurship, relationship, just trying to better yourself, then I strongly suggest that you subscribe to Lewis Howes, right? And don't forget to listen to this specific interview with Alex. I mean, it's Alex. You know, he's always going to give you gems that could help you as far as entrepreneurship is concerned. Now, in the middle of the conversation, Alex talked about this idea of eradicating problems, and I found it so useful, right? He talked about one of the fastest ways to eradicate a problem is actually by acknowledging that it's not a problem in the first place. My brain just went, whoa. I found it to be so useful. If you have an issue and you don't even think it's an issue, and I'm talking about minor problems, then think about it. You don't have to get into those back and forth conversations with individuals that you don't need to, right? Now, let me give you an example to actually help you digest this a lot better. If I'm a guy that loves playing video games every time I get off work with my buddies, right? And then one of these days I get home, whilst I'm in the middle of playing my video game, my fiance, my girlfriend comes in, try to bother me, mess with me. I'm not even enjoying the game anymore. There is a few ways I could approach this, right? One of the ways is I could be very upset, right? I could get very argumentative, and then the conversation could go a whole different way. Usually it turns out not to be productive. Or I could simply acknowledge that this is my girlfriend's way of trying to mess with me, trying to get my attention so I can spend more time with her and laugh it off. In that case, this is not a problem at all. And I believe this is going to be useful for me going forward. And I hope this is going to be useful for you as well, right? Then there are those type of lessons I talked about initially that completely become extremely useful in our life going forward. I'm talking about those lessons that takes away whatever lens in which we see life and replaces it. That's one of those lessons I want to talk about today. So over the last few years, every time I'm required to learn a new skill set in order for me to become a better version of myself, somehow I'll conjure up these ideas and stories about how difficult that skill set was going to be, right? I would tell myself how challenging the learning curve was going to be. And sometimes it becomes so bad to the point where I paralyze myself and I don't even take the action at all, right? Sounds very familiar. An example of this is actually when I made a decision last year to start doing my podcast. The funny thing is that from the day I made the decision to the day I actually looked it up on YouTube was an 8 months period. It took me 8 months to look it up because I was thinking about how hard it's going to be to do a podcast for 30 minutes to an hour, to sit in front of a camera, prepare. What if I don't know what to say? But when the day came and I actually looked it up on YouTube on how to start a podcast and distribute on all platforms, it only took me about 19 to 20 minutes to figure it out. Just imagine how many decisions, how many things that we have in our life that we postponed for so long. Just imagine if I would have started my podcast 8 months ago, how much better would I have gotten? Maybe my on-camera presence would have been a lot better, right? Maybe being able to have references and talk about different examples and stories from all the principles and the disciplines that I know would have been a lot better during the podcast. So what is the lesson here? For whatever reason, the human brain, whenever we have to go to a different territory, like I'm talking about places that we're not comfortable at, right? Whenever we have to acquire a new skill set, we have to become beginners, our bodies get very uncomfortable. It tries to conserve energy and it wants to create all these possibilities in our head, which usually don't turn out to be true. Just like I said last week, whatever you are thinking, if you have tasks, if you have things you need to work on, don't focus on the ideas. Find a way to still execute, because this is what I've come to learn. On the other side of discomfort, on the other side of those stories, on the other side of these ideas, it's a better version of you. I was so uncomfortable being in front of a camera. And so I put in the effort to work on myself, to practice in the car every day. Like a lot of you think most of us that do these videos, things come so easy for us, but it's not true, right? Like I put in so much effort every day. Like in the car, I'm practicing, I'm working on the episodes, I'm thinking about new ideas, I'm working on overall my on-camera presence, my delivery, the stories I'm going to talk about. I'm evaluating everything. If you want to be better, you have to completely ignore those thoughts. You have to ignore those perceptions. You have to really go ahead and take the action, because once you take the action, you don't have to ask yourself any of those questions. Everything becomes irrelevant. You're already doing it, right? Because now that I'm doing the podcast and I have things that I said I wasn't going to be able to talk about, does it even matter? No, I'm preparing. And the thing is, when it comes to podcasts, for example, if you are really prepared, like there's no doubt, because I've already rehearsed this so many times. Like I've really prepped before I got in front of the camera to talk about any of these things. So even when there's points during the episodes where I forget something a little bit, maybe 2 or 3 seconds later, I remember it and I continue the episode because I'm so prepared. This is the lesson I want you to take with you today. Do not let your thoughts, do not let those stories, do not let the perceptions about things that most likely will not happen stop you from becoming the better version of yourself. Because no matter how things turn out, I've learned so much as a result of doing this podcast, right? You're going to be a better communicator as a result of doing this. Some of you, I know for sure you want to be able to start doing content. Some of you want to start putting out podcasts. Some of you want to be just YouTubers or whatever the case might be, maybe short form content. But you've conjured up all these ideas about what people are going to say about you, what your perceptions are, and it's stopping you from taking the next action you need to take. This is what I'll tell you about people. Not everyone is going to love you. Like no matter what I do, I could become the smartest person on the planet. And I promise you, people still going to have a problem with me. If people don't like Elon, if people don't like some of the best philanthropists in the world, if people don't like some of the kindest people, even Jesus, people didn't like him. Don't expect everyone to like you. There are people that will like you. There are others that will hate you. And there are others that won't care about you at all. It's irrelevant. Take the actions you need to take. Courage is not the absence of fear. It's acknowledging that I am afraid. Sometimes when I get in front of the camera, no matter how many times I've practiced, I still think, oh my God, I'm going to forget something. And sometimes I do forget things, but you must take the action anyway. That's what courage is all about. And I promise you, on the other side of that thought in your head, on the other side of that discomfort, the stories, there's a new version of you that's better than the individual you are today. And I promise you, you will be very proud of yourself, right? I hope, like I said in the beginning, this lesson becomes very valuable and it alters how you look at life going forward. You actually find a way to take the actions you need to take regardless of whatever is going on in your head, because usually it turns out that it's not as bad as you think at all. All right. Listen, I hope you truly found a lot of value in this episode. And if you did, don't forget to like and subscribe. If I said anything that resonated with you, that made you say, Sam, you're right. I have been thinking about starting a business and I have been putting it off. Thank you for reminding me. I am going to take the action. I know I'm afraid, but I also know if I do, I will get to a better version of me. Thank you so much for stopping by and spending about 10 minutes with me. I hope you go out there and you implement these things. Like I've been saying the last 2 videos, the only way I'm going to look better, the only way this channel is going to get bigger is if you find a way to implement the ideas, the habits, the disciplines, the strategies going forward. Because if you implement them, you're going to get results, which will make you share the videos with other people that really care about you and love you. You'll go out and make today one of the best days of the week, all right?